Frank had always been strong. Even in his late 60s, he took pride in being able to lift his own groceries, fix things around the house, and carry his grandchildren on his shoulders. But lately, something had changed, and not in a dramatic movie scene kind of way. It was quieter than that. It started with the mornings. He'd wake up and notice his arms felt more tired than the night before. Standing up from bed seemed to take a little more effort. The walk to the kitchen, just slightly slower. At first, he blamed it on poor sleep, then on stress, then reluctantly on age. "I guess this is just part of getting older," he told himself, but something inside him pushed back. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. Aging didn't mean fading. It didn't mean losing a piece of yourself every morning without explanation. Frank's doctor told him he was healthy. His heart was fine. His blood worked normal. "Just stay active," she said. But how do you stay active when your body quietly tells you each day that it can't keep up? That's when Frank did something simple. He started writing things down. What he ate, how he slept, how his body felt each morning. It wasn't long before a pattern began to emerge. Most of the time, Frank would eat a light dinner. Some soup, maybe toast, a cup of tea, nothing too heavy. He thought that was the right thing to do. "Don't eat much before bed," he'd always heard. But on the few nights he had something more filling, like leftover chicken or a scoop of yogurt, he noticed a difference. Not just in how he slept, but in how strong he felt the next morning. It wasn't a coincidence. What Frank didn't know, and what most seniors are never told, is that the body continues to work hard while we sleep, especially when it comes to muscle. As we age, we naturally lose muscle mass, a condition called sarcopenia. But that loss doesn't happen evenly. For many people, the breakdown accelerates at night, when the body is fasting and when it's not given the right tools to repair and rebuild itself. That's what Frank was feeling. Not fatigue, not age, but silent, nightly muscle loss. The idea that your body is breaking down your own strength while you sleep is both alarming and strangely empowering. Because once you know that's what's happening, you can do something about it. You can feed your body in a way that stops that loss, and even begins to reverse it. And Frank? He started listening to his body instead of outdated advice. He began discovering what bedtime foods actually protect his muscles. And slowly, the man who felt himself fading started to feel strong again. Let's talk about what was secretly making his mornings worse, and why your nighttime habits might be doing the same. There's a word that Frank had never heard before. Catabolism. It sounded clinical, like something that belonged in a biology textbook, not in the quiet routine of an aging man's evenings. But as he read more, something clicked. Catabolism is the process where the body breaks down complex molecules into simpler ones, like muscle into amino acids. And this process, it turns out, doesn't slow down when we sleep. In fact, it can ramp up. That night, Frank sat on the edge of his bed thinking about that word. His doctor never mentioned it. Neither did the fitness magazines or the healthy aging podcasts he listened to occasionally. But this was exactly what he was experiencing. His own body eating away at his muscle tissue during the night, all because it wasn't being properly supported. It made sense. The body goes into a natural fasting state during sleep. No food for 6, 7, sometimes 10 hours. For younger people, that's not usually a problem. Their muscle stores are stronger, their hormonal systems more efficient, and their recovery times quicker. But for someone over 60, especially someone trying to lose weight, the story changes. A lack of nighttime nourishment sends a signal to the body. Conserve energy, break down what you don't need, start with the muscles. And this, Frank learned, was a massive part of why many older adults struggle to maintain strength even when they're eating well and staying active during the day. Even more unsettling, this muscle breakdown happens silently. You don't feel it happening. You just notice that your arms are weaker, that your knees ache when standing, that it's harder to get out of the car, and most people never trace it back to the night before. But Frank did, and it changed everything. He began to understand that what you do in those final hours before bed, what you eat or what you don't, has a deep, direct impact on how your body maintains itself. The absence of the right nutrients leads to catabolism. The presence of them? It opens the door for an entirely different process, anabolism, the rebuilding and repair of muscle tissue. That small shift in understanding flipped a switch for Frank. He wasn't helpless. He wasn't at the mercy of aging. His strength wasn't disappearing for no reason. It was being taxed by a biological rhythm he had never been told about. And what's worse, many of the habits he had been following with good intentions were actually making it worse, like his long-held belief in eating light before bed. For years, Frank believed he was doing everything right. Dinner was always the smallest meal of his day, a bowl of soup, maybe a piece of toast. Occasionally, some steamed vegetables or a small salad. It was clean, it was light, and it made him feel disciplined, like he was taking care of his health the way he'd been taught. After all, wasn't that the rule? Don't eat too much at night, or it turns to fat. But now, in the light of what he'd learned about catabolism, this old belief started to feel off, not just outdated, but actively harmful. The truth is, for seniors especially, light dinners can be a quiet thief of strength. When we age, our ability to synthesize protein declines. That means your muscles need more support to stay strong, not less. And if you're trying to lose weight, this becomes even more important. Because when your body is in a caloric deficit, it's already searching for sources of energy. Without enough nighttime nutrition, it will pull that energy from wherever it can, often from your muscles. That's what Frank's healthy dinners were doing. Not feeding him, depleting him. He started thinking back to the days he felt stronger. What had he eaten? On those nights, it was usually leftovers. Baked chicken, a bit of quinoa, maybe a spoonful of Greek yogurt. Not exactly a feast, but enough to give his body something to work with overnight. He wasn't bloated. He didn't sleep poorly. In fact, he slept better. And in the morning, he woke up steadier, firmer, like his body had rested, not deteriorated. It was strange, even frustrating to realize that something so widely praised, eating light at night, was causing him harm. But it also brought clarity. If the body repairs itself while we sleep, then denying it nutrients during those hours is like trying to build a house without tools. Frank wasn't alone in this misconception. Many of his friends did the same. They feared eating before bed would slow their weight loss, make them bloated, or keep them awake. But the opposite is often true. The right foods in the right amounts can actually stabilize blood sugar, improve sleep quality, and preserve lean mass. And this realization sparked a question in Frank, a question he asked out loud one morning over coffee. Have you ever felt weaker after a week of dieting? It's a question worth asking, not because the diet is wrong, but because the timing, the balance, the nighttime support might be missing. Frank's journey towards strength wasn't about eating more. It was about eating smarter, especially in those critical final hours of the day. That's when he remembered the first food that made a real difference. It was simple, cold, ordinary, but it changed everything. It sat quietly in Frank's fridge the same way it had for years, a tub of cottage cheese usually ignored. He'd bought it occasionally, maybe used it in a recipe here or there, but never thought much of it. Until one evening, while researching bedtime nutrition, he came across a word that made him pause: casein. Casein is a slow-digesting protein found in dairy, particularly rich in cottage cheese. Unlike whey, which absorbs quickly and is often used post-workout, casein works like a time-release formula. It feeds your muscles gradually, sustaining them through the long fasting hours of sleep. For someone like Frank, this wasn't just interesting. It felt like an invitation, a way to give his muscles a quiet ally in the nighttime battle against breakdown. That night, he scooped out a modest portion, just half a cup, added a sprinkle of cinnamon and a few walnuts for taste, and sat with it slowly. It wasn't a huge change, but the next morning, he noticed something subtle but real. His legs felt more stable getting out of bed, his hands less stiff. There was a sturdiness to his movements that had been missing. He didn't get excited right away. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe he just slept better. But he tried it again and again, 3 nights in a row, and each morning the same quiet strength returned. That's when Frank understood. His muscles weren't failing. They were starving. What makes cottage cheese such a powerful food for seniors isn't just the casein, it's the combination. It's high in protein, low in sugar, and rich in calcium and B12, both critical for muscle function and nerve health. And because it's not heavy or greasy, it won't disrupt sleep or digestion. In fact, the tryptophan content in dairy can even promote deeper rest. This small dish became Frank's bedtime ritual. It didn't feel like a diet. It didn't feel like a strategy. It just felt like care, like he was finally giving his body what it had been quietly asking for all along. The power of cottage cheese isn't in its flavor. It's in its timing. It's in the trust you build with your body when you stop depriving it and start supporting it even while you sleep. And as Frank built this new habit, he began to explore more. What other simple foods had this kind of hidden strength? What else had he overlooked? That's when he discovered a small green fruit with unexpected power, a food that didn't just protect his muscles, but helped him finally sleep through the night. Frank wasn't searching for a fruit. He wasn't even looking for something sweet. But during one restless night, he came across a short article that stopped him mid-scroll. Kiwi, the sleep fruit? It sounded strange, almost like a wellness gimmick, but curiosity won. And what he learned shifted how he approached his evenings. Forever. Kiwi, it turns out, is more than just a tangy snack. It's a natural source of serotonin, a precursor to melatonin, the hormone that regulates your sleep cycle. In older adults, melatonin production often declines, leading to more frequent waking, lighter sleep, and longer nights. Frank had felt this many times. Waking at 3 a.m., staring into the darkness, his body tired but his brain alert. But what no one told him is how that poor sleep wasn't just draining his energy, it was draining his muscles. Sleep is when the body enters its most intense recovery phase. Growth hormone is released, cells repair, and if the body has the right materials, like protein and minerals, muscles rebuild. But without deep, sustained sleep, this entire process weakens, and over time, your strength does too. Frank was already eating cottage cheese before bed. It helped. But now he saw an opportunity to take things a step further. What if he could improve the quality of his sleep, not just the fuel available during it? He added one kiwi to his nighttime snack. Just one. Bright green, slightly tart, simple. Within 3 nights, the difference was obvious. He fell asleep faster. He stayed asleep longer. And when he woke up, the usual grogginess was gone. His body didn't feel heavy, it felt rested. And here's what made it even better. Kiwi also contains antioxidants like vitamin C and E, which help fight inflammation. It's rich in potassium and magnesium, both vital for muscle function and relaxation. And unlike most sweet fruits, it's relatively low on the glycemic index, meaning it doesn't spike blood sugar before bed. The combination was powerful. Cottage cheese gave his muscles what they needed. Kiwi helped his body use it better, by giving him the sleep his age had slowly taken away. Frank began to think of this not as a bedtime snack, but as his nighttime therapy, a quiet ritual of strength and restoration. No medications, no heavy meals, just smart choices, guided by what his body had been telling him all along. And as sleep returned to him, so did his confidence. Because there's something deeply reassuring about knowing that even as you rest, your body is working with you, not against you. But one more piece was still missing. Strength wasn't just about protein or sleep. It was about balance. And that's when Frank rediscovered an old pantry staple that had silently protected his metabolism all along. Frank had nearly forgotten it was there. A small jar tucked in the back of his pantry, almond butter. He used to spread it on toast occasionally or dip apple slices in it as a treat. But since trying to eat cleaner at night, he'd stopped. He'd assumed it was too heavy, too fatty, too indulgent. But now, everything he thought he knew about bedtime habits was shifting. And when he learned how important stable blood sugar and healthy fats were for preserving muscle during sleep, almond butter found its way back into his life, this time with purpose. You see, one of the most overlooked enemies of nighttime muscle loss is unstable blood sugar. When your glucose levels dip too low during sleep, your body releases cortisol, a stress hormone, to compensate. And cortisol, in high or frequent doses, breaks down muscle tissue. It's part of the body's survival mechanism. But in a modern context, especially for seniors trying to maintain strength, it's quietly destructive. That's where almond butter comes in. Just 1 spoonful before bed offers a unique combination: protein, healthy fats, magnesium, and a small dose of natural fiber. It's enough to keep blood sugar steady through the night. And that means less cortisol, less muscle breakdown, more recovery. Frank added it slowly. Some nights, just half a tablespoon mixed into his cottage cheese. Other nights, spread thinly on a slice of whole grain toast. It felt indulgent at first, almost like cheating. But his body told a different story. He began waking up more energized. No more heavy legs. No more lingering fatigue that made him question his routines. But there was more. Almond butter, rich in magnesium, also supported deeper sleep and muscle relaxation. Magnesium is a key mineral that many older adults are deficient in. It aids in everything from nerve transmission to blood pressure regulation, and it plays a crucial role in muscle repair. For Frank, this meant fewer nighttime cramps, less joint stiffness in the morning, and an overall smoother start to his day. What struck him most, though, was how simple it all was. He didn't need exotic supplements. He didn't need expensive treatments. He needed to unlearn years of fear around food and remember that nourishment, especially at night, isn't the enemy. It's the answer. With cottage cheese for protein, kiwi for sleep, and almond butter for metabolic balance, Frank's nighttime routine became something sacred. Not a chore, not a punishment, but a quiet form of self-respect. And yet, there was still one final piece. A food he hadn't touched in years. A classic often dismissed. But when he gave it a second chance, it gave his strength back. There was a time when turkey was only a holiday food for Frank, something carved at family dinners, served with laughter, and left behind with the dishes. In his day-to-day life, it had all but disappeared. Too dry, too bland, too heavy for nighttime. That's what he thought, until a quiet article on amino acids and sleep piqued his curiosity. Tryptophan. He remembered the word vaguely from conversations about Thanksgiving naps. But this time, he read more carefully. Tryptophan isn't what makes you sleepy by itself. It's a precursor to serotonin and melatonin, the same neurotransmitters that help your body wind down, repair, and rebuild during rest. And turkey? It's one of the richest natural sources of it. That's when Frank started rethinking this forgotten food, not as a dinner centerpiece, but as a strategic nighttime ally. He grilled a few slices, let them cool, and wrapped them up in the fridge. That night, he had 2 slices before bed. No bread, no sides, just the turkey. Lean, simple, protein-dense. And the next morning, something felt right. His sleep had been smooth. No tossing, no sudden waking. But more than that, he felt solid. The kind of solid you don't realize you've been missing until it returns. Getting up wasn't a question mark. His steps didn't feel fragile, and the subtle tremble he sometimes noticed when holding a coffee mug, gone. He tried it again the next night. Same result. It wasn't just the tryptophan helping him sleep. It was the protein. A full profile of amino acids, giving his body everything it needed to repair and protect muscle while he rested. Unlike lighter proteins, turkey is a complete one. It offers leucine, valine, isoleucine, crucial for muscle synthesis. And because it's low in fat and easily digested, it doesn't disrupt the stomach or sleep cycle. Frank also appreciated how practical it was. Cook once, refrigerate, grab a few slices each evening. No prep, no mess, and paired with a small serving of cottage cheese or a dab of almond butter, it became part of his trusted rotation. A ritual, a reminder that simple, overlooked foods often hold the greatest power. What amazed him most wasn't just how effective turkey was. It was how far from his routine it had drifted, all because of myths. Myths about food before bed, about heavy proteins, about what aging bodies can or can't handle. But his body had no issue with turkey. In fact, it seemed to crave it. And as Frank settled into this new rhythm, something unexpected began to happen. His clothes fit better. Not tighter, not looser, but more right. His posture improved. His confidence grew. Because when your muscles are being cared for, your body remembers how to stand tall. That's when he asked the question he once feared to face. Is eating at night really bad for weight loss, or have we just misunderstood everything? Frank hesitated the first time he mentioned his new routine to a friend. "I've been having a bit of turkey and cottage cheese before bed," he said casually, stirring his tea. The friend raised an eyebrow. "At night? Isn't that bad for weight loss?" It was the same reaction he had expected, the same one he used to give himself. For decades, the idea had been drilled in. Don't eat after 7 p.m., or you'll gain weight. Let your body fast. Go to bed on an empty stomach. Let your system rest. But now Frank knew better, because here's what most people, especially older adults, don't understand. Timing alone doesn't control weight. Metabolism, hormones, and muscle mass do. And when you're over 60, losing muscle is far more dangerous than eating a few extra calories at night. In fact, preserving muscle helps burn fat. Muscle is metabolically active. It helps regulate blood sugar, supports balance and posture, and burns more calories even at rest. But when you lose muscle, your metabolism slows, your energy drops, and fat gain becomes easier, not harder. And this loss happens faster at night if your body isn't properly fueled. Frank had learned that skipping food before bed might help you weigh a little less in the short term, but you're often losing water, or worse, muscle. And that's not real health. That's just numbers on a scale. When he started his bedtime routine, cottage cheese, kiwi, almond butter, turkey, he was expecting to maintain strength, maybe sleep a bit better. What he didn't expect was to lose inches around his waist, or for his face to look less puffy, or for his morning stiffness to ease so dramatically. It wasn't magic. It was muscle preservation. And better muscle means better fat burning, better insulin sensitivity, and fewer cravings during the day. Of course, Frank didn't overeat. He didn't snack mindlessly. He didn't finish his dinner and then have a second dinner. What he did was intentional, measured, and deeply aligned with what his body actually needed during those hours of rest and repair. This wasn't about rebellion. It was about truth. The truth that for seniors, a small, protein-rich snack before bed can protect what matters most: strength, metabolism, and dignity. And Frank, he stopped fearing food. He started listening, and slowly, the weight he had carried wasn't just physical, it was mental. The guilt, the rules, the noise, they faded, because his body wasn't the problem. It was the silence around how to nourish it that had done the real damage. And now, he was ready to reclaim something more than just muscle. He was ready to reclaim himself, starting not with a workout, but with a simple nighttime ritual that worked with his body, not against it. There were no treadmills in Frank's living room, no resistance bands hanging from the door. He hadn't joined a gym in years, and the truth was, he didn't want to. The idea of lifting weights, sweating through routines, or counting reps felt foreign now. Not because he was lazy, but because his body needed something different, gentler, smarter. And yet, despite this, Frank got stronger. It didn't happen in dramatic bursts, no overnight transformations, just steady, quiet mornings where things stopped feeling so hard. Bending down to tie his shoes no longer came with a grunt. Carrying groceries didn't require leaning against the doorframe afterward. Even walking uphill didn't leave his legs trembling. The difference? His new nighttime routine. For the first time, his body had what it needed during its most important recovery hours. He wasn't fasting through the night anymore. He wasn't letting his muscles starve in silence. He was giving them fuel, protein, fat, sleep support, and that changed everything. Frank also added simple movements to his day, not workouts, moments, a few stretches in the morning, standing calf raises while brushing his teeth, walking around the block twice instead of once, But he no longer felt like he had to earn his strength. He was feeding it, honoring it, respecting the decades it had carried him, and giving it a reason to stay. The most surprising part? His energy. Before, his afternoons were a fight against naps. His focus drifted, his body sagged. But now, with deeper sleep and better muscle support, he moved through his days with clarity. He started reading more, cooking more, laughing more. Because when your body stops feeling like a burden, your spirit rises. He noticed something else, too. People noticed him again. His granddaughter asked to walk with him more. His daughter called and said, "You sound like yourself again." And his neighbor, who always used to carry Frank's newspaper to the porch, stopped one day and smiled. "You've got a spring back in your step." It wasn't about looking younger. It was about feeling useful again. Frank hadn't done anything extreme. He didn't go vegan. He didn't cut out carbs. He didn't buy expensive supplements or gadgets. He simply started giving his body what it had needed all along, just at the right time and with quiet consistency. He built his strength not through effort, but through care. And now, when he looks in the mirror, he doesn't see an aging man fighting the clock. He sees someone who finally understood how to listen to his body. Someone who stopped chasing fitness trends and started building a foundation of health that felt peaceful, not pressured. But the question that stayed with him, the one he asked himself every night as he scooped that cottage cheese, sliced that kiwi, or spread that almond butter, was this: what strength do I want to keep? And maybe that's the question we should all ask ourselves. Frank stood in front of the mirror, not to inspect his body, but to check something else, his posture. Shoulders back, core gently engaged, legs firm beneath him. He didn't look younger, but he looked present, steady. And in that moment, he realized something deeper than any number on a scale or doctor's chart. He had stopped fading. Strength, he now knew, wasn't about lifting weights or chasing youth. It was about maintaining what matters, the ability to get out of bed without struggling, to reach for a jar on the top shelf, to pick up his granddaughter and feel her weight without fear of stumbling. These are the strengths that aging quietly tries to steal. Not all at once, but piece by piece. And too often we don't even notice until they're gone. But Frank did notice. And more importantly, he did something about it. He rebuilt his foundation one bite at a time. Not with diets or punishments, but with nourishment, intention, respect. It started with a single change, adding something instead of taking something away. Cottage cheese, kiwi, almond butter, turkey, simple foods, often overlooked, each playing a role in protecting his strength while he slept. Not as magic cures, but as tools, allies, little acts of kindness toward a body that had given him so much for so long. And as Frank reflected on this journey, he couldn't help but wonder how many others were still waking up weaker, confused, frustrated, thinking it was just age, when maybe, like him, they'd simply never been shown how to feed their body at the right time. So now, he shares this question with you. Is there something you've stopped doing because you feel too weak? Maybe it's a hobby, a walk, a dance, or just the confidence to reach out to someone you love. Comment below. Your story might be the mirror someone else needs to see their own strength again. Because here's the truth. Strength doesn't vanish. It fades quietly when we stop giving it what it needs. And the beautiful part? You can start feeding it tonight. With something simple. Something real. Something that says, I'm still here. I still matter. You don't need permission to care for yourself. Just a spoon, a slice, a quiet moment before bed, and the decision to stop losing strength in silence. Let that be your new beginning.